So myself and Aditya were talking a little bit earlier on, and we came up with this idea. Actually, in fact, Aditya asked why we don't take this to a show, perhaps, and that is the best batting approach in the second innings of a test match. How would you like a team to approach that when chasing runs or whatever the case may be? So I thought it would be a good discussion to talk about it because today's show is going to be dedicated to South Africa's poor batting in recent times. We're going to be discussing various different things that we've seen online recently of people that have obviously released certain information about the batting lineup, and we're going to obviously talk about that on the show today, and give some of those stats to you guys on the show. And I'm also going to discuss with you guys in the live chat as well what you guys think about everything, what you think about the current batting setup, what you think about why our issues are the way they are in domestic cricket, or not in domestic cricket, but in the test cricket specifically, the step up, why it's been so difficult. I want to discuss that all with you guys as well. But before we get going, before we get started, please click subscribe to this channel, click that notification bell for all future videos, please. Also, smash that like button and comment and share. It's very important that you do so we can get into recommended feeds. And also, you can become a patron today. Help us promote South African cricket and help us grow South African cricket by becoming a patron today so we can give back to cricket in South Africa. You can also become a part of our subscriber base for our monthly magazine. It's 100% free, straight to your inbox every single month. The link is on the screen as well as in the description. So go ahead and download that. Every issue is free to your inbox every month, and you have access to it on your phone as well as your tablet as well as in your laptop. So it is adjustable to the different formats that you are going to be using on your different devices. For your regular updates, go to cricketfanaticsmag.com. We have features, previews, reaction pieces of the press conference, in obviously opinion pieces, so many things on the site to entertain you and inform you leading up to this test match and about cricket in South Africa in general. So please go ahead to cricketfanaticsmag.com every single day, guys. We need every view that we can get to the site as well. So without further ado, let's get straight into today's video. Let's talk about our batting. It's time to talk about our batting again. We're going to be having this discussion. Thought that this would be over 2 years, 3 years ago, but we now in a worse spot that we've ever been. A very good evening and welcome to Cricket Fanatics Magazine. This is your daily show. I'm your host Khalid, and this is the show where we talk about all the major talking points in South African cricket. Now, South Africa's batting has been a problem for quite some time now. I think a lot of us have been complaining about it recently. There's been certain stats that have been released about South Africa's batting. Particularly this one that stands out to me is the batting averages and 100 scored by South Africa's top seven, broken down by year. This has told an exceptional story of the decline of our batting over the last couple of years. In 2016, we averaged 42.49 with 12 centuries. In 2017, we averaged 37.91 with 13 centuries. In 2018, we averaged 30.72 with 6 centuries. In 2020, we averaged 32.83 with 1 century. 2021, we averaged 31.31 with 3 centuries. And 2022, we averaged 31.49 and 2 centuries. So the way we've declined has been crazy. It's dropped off almost more than half. And that's a problem. That's been a problem for quite some time. And every single time we try to identify the issues, it's always been a different issue. I remember in the local home leg of the tours when Aiden Marketer made his debut, etc., with Dean Alga as the opening pair, we were talking about what is that new opening partner for Dean Alga. We had Steve Cook there. We tried some other guys there too, but then when Aiden Markram came onto the scene, we almost thought that we found our next opener for South Africa. He hit the ground running with a 97 not out, and then 100 in the following innings or game, I think it was. Then he went on to score two hundreds, big hundreds against Australia, and then a 90 against India as well. And we really thought that we really found our more attacking opening partner for Dean Algar. Wasn't to be, guys. We went to India and Sri Lanka and we were completely embarrassed. And that's when the whole narrative again came out about us being able to play against spin. South Africa went on a massive drive to trying to improve their game against spin. It was not only an issue in the test arena, but it was also an issue in the white ball one day arena when India's team completely demolished South Africa, taking 32 wickets between Kuldeep Yadav and Chahal, completely destroying that young or inexperienced batting lineup. And we looked even further away from the recovery. And South Africa then went on a spinning camps, tried to improve this, and then we saw a different type of South Africa in Pakistan to an extent. Aiden Markram particularly impressing against spin, and we saw an improvement in his game. Then the whole debacle with regards to the IPL happened, where they sent players, when players decided to go and play in the IPL instead of playing Test cricket for the country. Some at that point there was absolutely no choice for players at the end of the day, and we had a certain reception from Dean Algam making it seem like these players had to fight for their place back, and that was obviously Rasif van der Dussen and Aiden Markram within that team. That needed and Kagiso Rabada as well as Lungi Ngidi and those guys too. But we were never really worried about our bowling attack. Our bowling attack has been world class for a very long time, so I wasn't really worried about that. But for those guys to come back straight back into the team, even though other guys were given a chance in their positions, was a bit sad. Also, another thing that we're missing is experience now. Between 2016 and 2017, and now we've lost a hell of a lot of players, including the greats like Hashim Amla, sorry, like the likes of Aby de Villiers, Faf du Plessis, even more recently, Quentin de Kock and Faf du Plessis actually more recently, but still lost those players. And the batting attack, the batting lineup, and now recently also missing one of our most experienced players in Temba Bavuma, which makes us look quite amateurish, especially when we're trying to learn our games on the fly and on the go. I'm going to bring Aditya on the show with me to discuss this topic further. It was Aditya that came up with this topic idea, so I think that it's only fair that we do conversate and talk about this a lot more. Welcome to the show, bro. Good to see you again. I'm just starting first and foremost, outlaying like a picture for everybody to understand how our batting has deteriorated over the last couple of years. I've given the stats of our centuries per year. There's another stat that I've seen recently, and it was, and I think this is overall averages overall from with regards to teams in the test arena. And Australia's right on top, played 844. This is the match win ratio, of course. So Australia 844, they've won 400. So their average is about 47.39. With regards to South Africa, played 454 and won 175. So their average is 38.54. So we're actually second on that list of all time, if you think about it. So that's a good place for South Africa to be. But the decline over the last couple of years has been hectic. So we have to obviously assess and see what has changed in that period. What has changed before 2016 to now? Has the domestic scene, we saw an article from Vidos Munda today talking about the domestic scene, saying that the domestic scene is weaker and that's the reason for our batting woes. I don't tend to agree to that. What I believe is that South Africa don't get to play. We have problems against specific things, and it's non-conditional things in South Africa. So things that we can't maybe we can't what to copy in South Africa. So spin was first an issue. A lot more of the wickets in South Africa recently actually have been spinner friendly and not necessarily seamer friendly in the last year or so. We've heard a lot of spinners taking massive wickets in the 4-day arena, even in the white ball arena. We can see what's happening in the T20 arena. A lot of the wickets have been slower wickets, more spinner friendly wickets. So, with regards to seam bowling, the seamers weren't as effective, perhaps, as in certain conditions than others. When it comes to the bowlers in South African cricket, there are not a lot of swing bowlers that we face because there's not necessarily swing conditions for South Africans to bowl. You're not necessarily going to be as equipped against the swinging ball, but more of the seaming deliveries of the pitch. And the conditions in South Africa obviously going to play a part in that. Perhaps on an overcast day in Newlands, you'll get that. Perhaps you'll get that maybe in Durban, in Gqeberha, you'll get that morning swing. But it hasn't necessarily been those conditions a lot in the summer. You don't get that conditions right in the heat of the summer of the season. So the chances of replicating that swing that you would get in England, etc., is difficult. Yeah, and you can, and I think that statement of South Africa's bowlers are not good enough is a bit naive. I feel because then on the same, you have to look at it on the opposite end of it as well. Then you have to look at it because it's completely two opposite things. You on the one hand, you're saying our bowlers are not good enough, that's why our batters are poor. But then on the other hand, you're saying our bowlers are poor, but we're producing some of the best seamers of all time every single cycle. So where is the common ground with regards to that? Because not even in the county scene do they produce five, six, or four world class bowlers per team. So, and there's more teams and more bowlers to be spread around. So I don't think that's the reason why our batting is poor. Um, I'm trying to identify what it is. I believe personally that it might be personnel, that the right players getting picked with the right mentalities or characters or unseen or intangible characteristics that help you play against the likes of the new ball swing or they have the ability to be able to adapt your game according to conditions. Some players naturally can do that. They have it intrinsically in them. And I think the way we assess our batters in the domestic scene is maybe not accurate. I feel it's not in depth enough, maybe. And that's maybe because this is my understanding sitting on the outside looking in. We could be completely wrong, and Vern and Victor Impetsang and the selectors and Graham Smith could be sitting very intensely at laptops before. Now with obviously not Graham anymore, but now we've got Enoch and Kwe. We don't know if they're sitting intensely looking at the data, looking at the stats, looking at all of those things in depth before they pick players. It doesn't come across like that to me, by the way they've selected recently and in the past. Players become the next new best thing and fall out of favor quite quickly, from being the next person to fill that role to being absolutely not seen in the system at all. And this has happened to quite a few players, not only in the batting department, but also in the bowling department. And we know that more test cricket you play, the more practice you get, the more you are exposed to those conditions. I mean, South Africa only tour England every 4 years or something like that, or something crazy like that. So you don't get to experience those conditions easily unless you go to England and play county cricket. And even if you do play county cricket, you're not going to get Jimmy Anderson, Stuart Broad, and Ali Robinson or Jofra Archer or Mark Wood bowling at you all in one match. So there's a lot of things we need to discuss with regards to that. I think it's more the execution of game plans, or maybe picking the wrong game plan for the specific situation that doesn't suit a batter. I think that's maybe something that we need to get out of. I think that South Africa's, because of the different conditions you're playing in within South Africa, you're constantly getting exposed to different conditions. So South Africans are naturally more adaptable, I feel, than other countries, in my opinion. Now, I don't know if that is 100% true, but I do feel that the conditions in the Wanderers and Centurion are completely different to Newlands, completely different to Durban, and completely different to Abeja. So you're going to get to get a nice holistic, and even Bloemfontein, you get a nice flat track over there that also gives you experience as a batter from to bat long and hard. So that's going long. I mean, flat track's obviously going to train you mentally to stand long at the crease. So sometimes, there's a lot of things you need to look at. You actually need to be there and watch these players play rather than just looking at the stats, because I can go through stats and say that this boy averages 40, but he scores 200 and no 50s or 100s after that. It can and it can be a not out and raise your stats tremendously. So there's a lot of things you need to look at, and I don't think that has maybe been looked at as in depth. I think there's a lot of trust happening within the system of talking to coaches and finding out and trusting people and their word for certain players. Sorry. But I think we need to look at that a little bit more in depth when we're discussing this. I think it's a bit naive to just blame the domestic system and say that that's the reason why we're not creating great players. More South Africans need to play domestic cricket and more Proteas players need to play domestic cricket? Yes, they do. Do we need to be able to produce more quality at the domestic level consistently that are Proteas players? Yes, we do, and I know that they do need to play. I mean, the stat that Fidos gave with it, for example, about Kagiso only playing one game in first class cricket, it's in the last couple of years. It's insane, that stat, because he is the best bowler in the world. Imagine having that. At least you'll have one team, and the Lions pose that pose that threat to a lot of people this season. At the beginning of the season, especially in Johannesburg and in Centurion, the ball was doing a hell of a lot, and it gave a lot of lessons to the batters because they had pretty good bowlers bowling to them consistently. So yeah, we need to find a way on how to maybe play against or how to combat that moving delivery, because even when they do struggle, sending them back to domestic cricket ain't gonna help them play against a swinging delivery. Unfortunately, maybe I feel that they get a false understanding of their abilities because of that. They go back to South Africa, they play those conditions well. The ball's not maybe doing swing movement in the air, but it's nipping off the pitch or whatever, or it might be a flat wicket, and then you go back, you inflate your runs again, and then you come back again, and then you struggle at the international cricket because you're not facing the same caliber of bowlers. And I think this is not only a South African problem. I think this is a problem throughout the world. That are going to be struggling with this issue. I think it's just a little bit more highlighted in South Africa because we're not sitting with experienced guys that are well known. It's unknown people that have recently come into the system that are failing. So it's a lot easier to maybe be critical of people that haven't been there for a long time than it is people that have done it and proven it in the game before. So that's my little rant on this. Aditya, give me your insight why you came about with this particular topic, of course, because especially now we're going to be moving into backward coaching.
Um, the reason I thought of this was because we're always trying to visualize the perfect scenario all the time, right? Like if South Africa lose the toss, I mean, if South Africa win the toss, they put 400 on the board. Perfect scenario. The bowlers have enough to defend, and then you've basically got a textbook test match victory thereafter. But there will be times when one department doesn't fire, which is exactly what happened in the second test match. What do you do then? You still have to find a way to battle it out and win, right? Or at least draw the test match. The South Africa that I grew up watching was that team, and I felt like this time around, when their backs were up against the wall, they did fight in that last innings, but that resilience, that warrior mentality, I thought was a bit lacking. And I don't think it was lacking because these guys are not tough enough or they're not mentally strong enough. I think it's because they also lacked that game awareness and strategy. Um, so obviously, when I think of a blockathon, I think of Faf du Plessis and the number of times that he's done it. Whether it was the 2012, his debut, or whether it was the 134 against India, or whether it was, I think, the 80 over against Sri Lanka. So he's obviously done it multiple times, and in that team, there was Hashim Amla, who was also capable of doing that. There was Abel Villiers, who was also capable of doing that. I think both of them in New Delhi, they scored some 40 runs of 300 balls. Faf du Plessis also scored 10 runs of 97 balls. So that, there is that fight, because you're never always going to have the perfect game, right? So if one department fails in the first innings, that doesn't mean that the test match is lost right there. You still have a way to come back, and I don't know if teams place enough focus on that. Certainly the South African team in recent times, because the focus has been on trying to get 350 on the board. That has been the focus, and we can talk as much as we want about centuries, but ultimately that has to contribute to a result, right? So there will be times when you don't make centuries, but how do you still win or save a game? I think that's a massive question that needs some introspection. And obviously, there's Herschel Gibbs, who talked about South Africa's approach. They said with 2 days left in the game, you can't be defending. You have to play a more all-out attacking approach, which I guess that's a difference of opinion, I suppose. I don't know, but yeah, I think these are certain thoughts in my mind that I felt like I needed to explore a bit more.
Mhm. Yeah, because I'm looking at it and listening to what Herschel gives is saying about maybe having a go in that second innings and playing more aggressively. Um, I still do believe that it's dependable on match situation too. Um, the conditions and how they're playing. Are they feeling confident on the strip? Um, that's also very important for them to be able to go out and attack. If I saw some signs of it in the first innings, of them showing resilience and showing a ability to be able to survive at the crease without being um, almost teased into playing shots. I think South Africa constantly gets teased into playing away from their body, and they constantly get fooled into playing away from their body and are not and almost like their technique goes out the window all of a sudden when the ball's moving a little bit. So it's been a problem that I've mentioned for quite some time, and I just don't know how South Africa is going to solve that without actual experience in England.
One thing that I've heard a lot in the media, with South African players, they say this quite a lot at press conferences and even in interviews, that you have to find a way to score because there's going to be a ball with your name on it.
Yeah.
Like they say that a lot. I've heard that a lot from the batters, and I agree with that on tough wickets. I agree with that. The focus should be on scoring, but somewhere that also tells me that they don't trust their defense enough,
Mm.
because you're never always going to be, particularly in England, you're never always going to be in a position where you can score at 4.5, 5 runs and over.
Yeah.
There will be
But you know
times
what
when you
frustrates me,
score it.
Aditya? What frustrates me is when the opposition look like they are batting on a different wicket to us. It happened in India.
Yeah.
It happened in Sri Lanka. It happened against Pakistan. It happened. It keeps on happening. It's almost like we don't know how to play unless we grit it out. Especially at the top of that order.
But it's also because we're always trying to find a way to play the perfect game. You're trying to you're trying to you're trying to create that perfect scenario, right? And and that's where I feel like there's a problem, because you're never always going to be able to do that. Look, the opposition team has also come to win. England is also there to win. They are going to compete. They will. James Anderson will bowl well. Stuart Broad will bowl well, and there will be times where they get the better of you. But that doesn't mean that they can run away with the game, right? You sort of have to arrest that momentum somewhere, and I think that's something that that South Africa have been historically good at, but they haven't implemented that in recent times. And this game being the perfect example of that,
Yeah.
right?
But I
Because
mean,
I like defensive technique is certainly something that deserves a bit more conversation. Just yesterday, day before yesterday, Virat Kohli was giving an interview. He's come back after a bit of a break, and one thing that he said really stuck out to me. He said that in difficult circumstances on a tricky pitch, your technique will take care of you, which I thought was so profound because how often do we actually hear someone say that?
yeah,
How
that's
often do
interesting.
we hear people talk about their technique looking after them? You know, um, and that's where I feel like, and that's where I feel like the South African team can do a bit better. Because I don't know if this if they stand by the idea that winning the toss and batting was the right thing to do, then that shouldn't have been a 151 sort of wicket.
No, not at all.
Because if
Because
that is the case, then you've gifted them the game.
because I mean, Dinalgo spoke about it. He said that it was poor batting. He doesn't. He stands by his decision to bat first. Now, a lot of
Right.
people will speak about the conditions, saying that that affected it. And to me, I was like, it didn't affect the ball with regards to movement in the air.
There was
it was almost like a um, what's the word I'm looking for? A facade in a way, because the conditions made it seem like it's going to swing and move. And then after two or three deliveries, Jeremy Anderson already spoke to his bowlers saying, guys, this ball's not swinging. It's nipping off the pitch. Change the way your lines are bowling. Change where you're bowling. And that's where it became tricky, because now in a little
yeah.
bit of damp conditions on those tricky pitches where you find an indentation or something, you are going to probably assume that Jimmy Anderson is going to find the right spots from his end. I mean, it's a place he knows really well, and a wicket he knows really well, and conditions he knows really well, and the chances of him finding the issues or the dinks in the pictures a lot faster is obviously more um, realistic to understand that. Now, I think our application with the bat, our application was poor. The way we lose our wickets is poor. Like, for example, with Dean Algan, I don't know, maybe it looks like this a lot more on the replay, but his wicket when he was bowled, I was concerned how far away from his body he was, and the fact that he moved his bat away from the line of the ball on the last minute. It's like they don't want to touch the ball. They're trying to get the way out. They're out of the way, and in the end, they actually still end up nicking it. I would rather want him to go with a more confident defensive stroke, knowing that they're trying to defend rather than a 50-50 shot. And a lot of the times, our players go out with 50-50 shots. It happens too many times that I've seen this happen. And that's mental, I think. That's got nothing to do with technique, I think. I think that's a mental thing that they want to push at every delivery that's wide, because maybe the conditions in South Africa train you to do that, because maybe you don't, in domestic cricket, you don't get as many accurate balls on the same spot. So when a ball goes off the line, you can throw your bat at it and it will go to the boundary, and more often than not. So that type of patience needs to be taught. And I thought that the England series would have taught them that, because our conditions were tough to bat in when you guys came down here recently. So I thought that, and also in Pakistan, I thought that would teach them that too. But it's almost like they don't learn from the mistakes. They keep making the same ones every single time they come to a new country that they haven't played in before. When that is the problem. Now it's going to continue like this if we don't capitalize on the experience, guys, that we have available to us right now. And that's why I've been calling for more youngsters to get into the squad, because they'll be learning amazing lessons from just being there, batting in the middle in a morning training session on those wickets, in those conditions where the ball is moving around. When you've got reverse swing bowlers, you've got swing bowler, a very good swing bowler in your team, you've got pace, you've got everything in your arsenal to be able to practice. I don't understand how you can still be getting on that. And you have a batting coach. So that really confuses me, is that the same issues are happening, the same problems are happening. um and it's very, very, very frustrating for me as a cricket fan, Aditya.
But you just talked about the fact that they're pushing at deliveries outside the off stump, right? And that illustrates what I just said about wanting to score because you're afraid that you're going to get out at some point, which means that the trust element in your defense is probably lacking. You know, like Jacques Callis was never afraid to play at 2 runs and over. He was never afraid to do that. He was more than happy to, to grind it out sometimes. And in tough
regardless
conditions, I think
regardless of the criticism that fans had about him batting so slow.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And look, as much as I love Herschel Gibbs, okay, he was one of my favorite players growing up, and he continues to be that. But there is a reason why Gibbs and Callis can be in the same team. Gibbs can employ an attacking approach and live with an average of 40, which is great for an opening batter in South Africa. But Gibbs and Callis make that team strong because they have their styles complement each other. And Callis is the one who's grinding it out and scoring those massive hundreds. I don't see that here because everyone sort of consistently is has that message that if you don't score, score before you get out. And I don't know, but I find that to be quite a negative way of approaching your cricket.
Mm.
Like Cheteshwar Pujara is not thinking about Cheteshwar Pujara is not thinking about when he's gonna get out. He's ready to bat for 3 days, and he trusts his technique. He is a rock solid technique. He trusts his technique even more than Virat Kohli does because Kohli is still looking to take the odd risk to up the scoring rate, and he's willing to get out in that fashion. But Cheteshwar Pujara, he's happy to bat all day long, and somewhere I feel like that's lacking. Look, I understand that strike rates are important even in Test cricket, definitely, but they're not important at the cost of your wicket. If you're batting at like 30 for no loss after 15 overs is much better
Yeah.
than 30 for 2 after 10 overs with you trying to go out for that
Mm.
flashy drive.
Also, cricket's a lot to do with instinct and habit, natural habit and movement and twitch muscles and all of those type of things. So your body gets into certain habits and reacts to certain emotions that you feel inside, right? I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but I know when I did certain sports and stuff, you get a certain emotion inside that makes you it's almost like your gut feeling of decisions that you need to make, and you trust that based on technique. Your technique and instinct kicks in after you believe, you know so if you can believe, you can do that one aspect of thing, your kind of your instincts kick in afterwards. And cricket is a lot about that. Sometimes I don't know how many batters are out there that have played cricket in the past, but I'm pretty sure you've probably faced a game where you were completely blank and don't remember how you got your runs. I mean, I've had a game like that before where I was in the middle of the crease, and I wasn't necessarily seeing the ball well or not necessarily reading the seam, but my instinct just kicked in. Before I knew it, I was on 20, 30 runs, and I didn't know how I got there. And like sometimes your mind kind of drifts in cricket, and your instinct kicks in. I feel that maybe, perhaps, and this is maybe a very left field thought process over here, but the emphasis and intensity that has been put in over a short period of time in T20 cricket. A lot of these players, and if you look at the ones that are struggling, Aiden Markrams of the world, Rassie van der Dussen, those are two players that we can maybe highlight. This has nothing to do. Now, I'm putting them in separate brackets to the likes of Cyril Eovier, Keegan Peterson, and Cal Verreynne, because they, and to Dean Alga. Dean Alga is a test specialist. In my opinion, he has no excuses at the moment. I think he needs to get his form back. 13 innings without a test captain, without a 100 is not good enough for an opener as experienced as him. Cyril Eovier and Keegan Peterson and Kyle Verreynne are still trying to adapt their games. They have hundreds overseas. It's a big achievement to get that anyway. So I think they have it within them to be able to try and find a way that suits them for Test cricket. And unfortunately, that's going to be a trial and error game. You need, obviously, South Africa are going to have to decide on personally whether they're going to take those chances with older guys that can maybe learn over 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years, or they're going to give more experienced guys an opportunity that have toiled away at domestic cricket, which seems to be the fair thing in cricket, because cricket is one of those games where you can be playing long, 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 long in the system and only get noticed later. So, unfortunately, not everybody can get picked. But it almost feels like to me sometimes with some of the shots that they play to go out, particularly Aiden Markram, Rassi van der Dussen, maybe some of the other guys that have been playing IPL too, or T20 cricket too. I feel like almost like because they play putting so much work and effort into improving the T20 game, 360ing their game as well, trying to find different shots. Sometimes muscle memory kicks in and they play a shot and they're like I can see it on Aiden's face when he goes out. It's like, why the hell did I play that shot? It's almost like it's coming out instinctively because he can look great for 30 and then all of a sudden play a weird shot that doesn't maybe suit the format or suit the conditions or suit the situation and go out. In T20 cricket, that is celebrated, if you did something strange or crazy that's out of the ordinary. And I kind of feel that all these formats and all the focus on T20 cricket at the moment is stuffing up our longer format players with regards to having the patience to stick there and force themselves not to make an instinctive shot or play an instinctive shot and chasing deliveries to get runs. There might be a feeling within them standing there in the middle, and like a need to score runs, because I know that that's in T20 cricket in the shorter formats. I get that feeling when I sometimes play for fun. Even if I play for fun, I get that feeling. Oh, flip! We need to score that runs. You get this like feeling inside of your, like the bottom of your heart, on the top of your pit of your stomach, on the top of your stomach, actually, where you're like, oh, I need to get those runs. It's like a nervous feeling, and then you go for it. I don't know how much that has got to do with the situation and with these players. Um, for example, Ryan Rickleton. I've watched him very closely in domestic cricket. He changes his game, even in domestic South African cricket. I watch the way he changes his game in Test cricket. I mean, sorry, in first class cricket, one day cricket, and in T20 cricket. He's been able to adapt his mindset and mentality. And that's what I'm hoping South African players learn to do. Adaptable cricket is what they're aiming to play. And I'm hoping that they can do that. Just because one way works for Dean Algar doesn't mean that it's going to work like that for everybody else. I feel that they need to also play their natural game, um, and more focus needs to go on the technique. And sometimes also when something works, just because it's failed the first time doesn't mean it will fail the second time. Maybe try it again. For example, I know that Aiden tried to stand outside off, closer to off stump or outside off stump, try to stop himself from playing at the balls, at anything that's outside the line, to prevent himself from getting sweet. That was against, um, who was it against? Pakistan, I think it was. We changed his foot. You remember we spoke about it, Aditya? I think it was against
It
Pakistan.
happened. It was
Upang,
against India.
was it against India?
It was against India.
Was against India. Where he tried to change his line and it might not have worked and he might have still, but that doesn't mean that it's the wrong decision to do that just because it failed once, So I don't know what it is, if it's repetition of of certain things or applications of game plans, or whether the players have the right attributes to be able to play the game plan that Dinago was trying to play, or whatever the case may be. But plain and simple, the senior players need to step up, and that is the truth, because it takes a lot of pressure off the younger guys. Um, but we need to sort it out. We can't be sitting with an average of 31 in 2022 as a top seven. It needs to be sorted out, and with our bottom order getting more runs than our top order, it's insane that is happening.
Look, we talked about the influence of T20 on their test games, right? But I think that's where Dean Elgar probably needs to reflect as well, right? Because he only plays test cricket. He's not playing, he's not hammering T20 games all across the globe, and but somewhere I think his game needs a little bit of that impetus as well, because he's focused, he's totally committed to red ball cricket, and
And it's
it's
playing
totally
the way
better
he
as a
does.
captain. Yeah,
Yeah, and playing the way he does. Like that's the way he plays. He stands on the other end and he grits it out and hopes for that poor delivery and puts it away. But if you got bowlers like Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad, Mohammad Shami and Jasprit Bumrah, who can put the ball on a 10 piece on a 10-cent coin consistently and get the ball to do funny things and move, you're already now playing on the back foot automatically. And perhaps South Africa need to take um, proactive proactive approach when they're playing against swing bowling. To get confidence up against that against that, because when the ball does move around a bit, especially when it's moving around outside off, from off stump away or into the batter, we seem to really more away from the batter. We seem to be struggling, which should be an easier ball. If the ball's moving away from you, should be an easier ball to leave. So it is very,
yeah.
um, yeah, it's very concerning in my opinion.
You, in Indian cricket, generally, when I grew up watching Rahul Dravid bat and Sachin Tendulkar, VVS Lakshman, and so on, and there was this refrain, where they would say constantly that in Test cricket, when the bowler is on top, you respect that. You find a way to survive. You trust your technique and believe that it will get you through. Because there will be a time when the bowler is going to get tired, and you can cash in if you've stuck around. And to me, with South Africa, sometimes I feel like they're probably trying to dominate at the wrong time. Aiden Markram did not need to play an expansive pull shot when they were 3 wickets down for 60 odd runs, and then get out himself. When him and Rassi were, they were sort of, they were getting by, and they needed to sort of weather that storm. And I don't know if South Africa are targeting the right bowlers at the right time. Sure, there will be times that a bowler's on top of you. That's going to happen, but
Yeah, that's the nature of Test cricket.
you know, like, you have to respect that period, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. That that is the
Yeah, pick
time
your
when you're going to
battles.
be, yeah, that
Yeah,
you're going to be batting at 2 runs and over, and that should be fine. That's totally fine. Like, no one's
yeah.
complaining about that.
Yeah, and pick your battles. I mean, like I think that against Jack Leach, for example, in this particular match, they could have been a lot more aggressive against him. There was opportunities to really put him away, and they didn't. They played defensively against him, where they been learning a more attacking approach against spin. We've, we've seen it in Pakistan. We saw it in in others against other subcontinent teams. So it really it's yeah, decision making has been poor. I think an application of game plan has been poor. I think, and I think that's something we need to sort out. And perhaps we can try to get hold of the batting coach and talk to him about it, because we might have some behind the scenes insight that we maybe don't know.
The most disappointing part of this loss is that we were talking about South Africa being slow starters, losing the first Test match and then sort of bouncing back. This time they actually got that right. They got that first Test match right. They won comprehensively, but they weren't able to sustain that momentum, which I thought was
Yeah,
quite
it's
unfortunate.
madness. That's madness that they went against their instinct, where they normally pick a same 11. They don't necessarily change too much. So they maybe completely misread the situation, and their abilities to play in these conditions. Maybe they have to be a little bit more honest with themselves and say, you know what, we chase better, or we start, we chase better. Maybe they maybe can put that into their minds and say, look here, we want to we bat better when our tails are up in the air. Perhaps they need the maximum amount of confidence they can get, and the way they can get that is with the bowlers being on top straight out. And if the conditions are suiting The bowlers, they maybe have to take the Otis Gibson approach and just say, look, yeah, we're going to just bowl you out and then try and chase. That should maybe be the mentality that South Africa go with until they find guys that can consistently score runs. And it doesn't necessarily always have to be milestones. It can be 40 now and again, like KP scored, but there needs to be also some conversions happening. Batting long is important, and perhaps they need to use some of the techniques that Ashwell Prince spoke about, looking beyond the 100 mark, not looking at the 100 as the milestone, looking beyond 50, not looking at 50 as the milestone, looking at 70 maybe as your target. Because then whenever you will always be, even if you miss it off by slightly, by 10 runs, you still achieved what you needed to achieve. So maybe they need to take some of those thoughts in their minds. I don't know how much. You see, it's very difficult to pinpoint where it is where the issues are, exactly where the issues are. Some could be mental. It could be mental for Sarel and or mental for Aiden and technique for Sarel, or mental for Sarel and technique for, or technique for Sarel and mental for Aiden, or vice versa. You know, we don't know what the actual reasons are, because there's no way that a player can perform like they did in one game in that manner and then suddenly be crap and not be able to bat. So I think that extremes need to change. We need to actually look into it a lot deeper. I think they need to sit with their video analysts and the statistician guys and actually look at it in depth and see why, and if they are going out the same way, why. I mean, I think for someone like Calvarena, perhaps he could really go and look at the footage and say, I've been getting out in similar ways consistently over this period of time. Maybe I need to change something here. Maybe I need to talk to someone. Maybe I need to do some extra. I don't know what it is, but we need to sort it out because it's pathetic at the moment. We need to be better. Aditya, your final thoughts?
Well, I hope that this loss hasn't dented their confidence to the degree that it affects their performance in the final game. Because you don't want to see South Africa go into their shell in that final game. You still want them to be, strong, tough, smart, and all the attributes that we'd like to see in a South African team. Um, that's my only hope, you know, because England is going to be high on confidence, and South Africa probably won't. But
Mm.
hopefully that should change, and South Africa should find a way to have like a dominant first sessions on that first day.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. Let me try and get to some of the comments over here, if I can. Um, the biggest issue our batters have is complacency. They'll get selected irrespective if they perform or not. Markram knows he'll play the third test. Of course, RVD is out and injured. I don't think complacency is the reason, um, to be honest. Uh, I, like I said, it's difficult for me to pinpoint it exactly. Every batter has different problems that is unique to them. But there is one commonality that's happening, and that is when we play against the balls that move around and don't just knock off the seam and go straight or left or right or cutters, we struggle. So that late movement and stuff, maybe playing the ball later, maybe might be a decision. We thought that would be the case that would help, but Inalga plays that type of cricket. He plays the ball very late, but yet it didn't work for him. He got clean bowled. So yeah, it was crazy. If South Africa want black batters desperately, then why not investing in a player like Tony Luzozi, who is really talented? And that's what I've also said that I think sometimes it's also personnel. Picking the right characters for a position, is very important. Sometimes a player like Dean Alga is a good example. He might not look like $1 million, but because of his character and because of that attribute, it really helps South Africa at the top of the order. It should. But if he's not getting runs, it's pointless being gritty. It's absolutely pointless if you're not going to get runs. Otherwise, you just waste them. Obviously, maybe it's good for maybe the other batters coming in because the ball won't be as old, perhaps. But to a degree, in those conditions, will reverse swing if you get a little bit of rough on it. So if he's not going to score runs, there's absolutely no point necessarily to bat at, to bat in the top order for South Africa, because there's no point in being gritty if you're not going to get runs, unfortunately. Um, let's see. Khalid Rickerton might miss out again. I don't think this. I've seen this narrative go around. I don't think that's a fair move, because it's not like Rassie van der Dussen was an all rounder. So you can replace him with a batter who is sitting in the system and in the team and has his debut already. Ryan Nicholson should be ahead of Kyle Zondo. Ryan Nicholson has made his test debut. Kyle Zondo hasn't. So it's natural for them. It would make more sense for them to pick Ryan Nicholson, in my opinion, in place of Rassie, than to pick Kyle Zondo at this moment. Um, can't be consistent. That's what I want him, because bringing someone in from outside of the squad and putting them straight into the starting 11 admits that you've made a massive mistake then in selection. If a person can walk out of the squad and come back straight into the first 11, that's crazy for me, unless it's because of balance. But Mulder hasn't shown at test level that he can bat at the standard that we are asking for at this point. Bowling, he showed it. He showed he can be accurate. But we've got bowlers like that are better than him in the team at the moment. So I don't think as batting or bowling that his batting is not better than Ryan's and his bowling is not better than the other bowlers. So there's no need to necessarily pick him. He doesn't add an extra variation necessarily like Marco Janssen with a left arm seam and height and the swing. So we need to take those things into consideration as well when thinking about this. Um, it's between Janssen and Mulder, so Janssen will 100% play. Can't have Mulder and Janssen. What you gonna do with 6 bowlers? Mulder had very good domestic season in England, man. He's quality, just needs confidence in his own abilities. Yeah, and the way he's gonna get confidence in his abilities is by playing domestic cricket with regards to batting higher up in the order. They need to start thinking about those things. That's why I said that the plans, the PDP plans and the player development plans between the Proteas and the domestic level need to be aligned. For example, the Proteas need to say to the Lions, look here, we want you to bat Mulder um no lower than 5, for example. So they need to say things like that to them and make sure that that gets implemented, and then tell them, give certain give certain achievements or goals for them to try and achieve. You know, for example, tell someone like Dean Alga, you need to try and score consistently 30 runs in the first 10 overs or 30 runs in the first 5 overs. Try and do that consistently, because in domestic cricket you can do something like that. You know, you can program it, because it's about consistent. Cricket's about programming your mind and getting into habits. Please don't, bro. Please don't do yourself like this, Alga. Who's he talking to? I don't know who he's talking to. Um, please don't do yourself like this, Alga. Ewe KP. Oh, he's talking to his brother. Oh, sorry. Please don't do yourself like this. Alga, Ewe KP, Zondo, Rickerton, Verena, Mulder, Janssen, Kesh, KG, Nokia. Oh, he's dropping Markram and he's dropping. Oh, so Rassi comes out. Markram's dropped. And Ungidi's dropped in this particular lineup. Okay. I can see it's nice and balanced, but I still think that Lungi's a better bowler than Vian Mulder, and I think Janssen can bat at 7. I don't see an issue with doing that and keeping that consistency from the first test. But I do like, that's a nice balanced team as well. It's very unfair on the player as well, Vian Mulder, to be thrown into a final match deciding test match in England at the Oval. It's a hell of a lot of pressure to put on a young lad like that. Victor's doing a great job turning his
But
commentary
sorry,
skill.
sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you there. But that's what preparation is about, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's where in international cricket we feel like the 15 players who are on the bench, all the 15 players should be ready to play at any given time, because an injury could happen to anyone. Someone could get concussed and you need a replacement. So there's no real time to acclimate, and I know it is unfair on players who might not have gotten game time. But what we can do is we may not judge them for their performances in these games, but they should be ready to perform in these games. You know what I mean? There's a difference in the two.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, also, you're right. And I hope that those conversations are being had with the players that are playing in England currently, you know? I don't know how much Mulder's selection had to do with the fact that he's already there in England, and how much that has to do with also what he's done, and how much it's got to do with where they see him in the test lineup in the picking order. So all of those things, I hope they communicate with him. I hope that they communicate with him. But guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Aditya, thanks a lot for coming on the show and having a chat with me and keeping me company. I really always enjoy it. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel, please, guys. And click that notification bell. Also, download the latest issue of Cricket Fanatics magazine monthly. Every issue is 100% free, straight to your inbox every month. The link is on the screen as well as in the description. And also help us grow South African cricket and promote South African cricket by becoming a patron today. The link is on the screen as well as in the description. Go to cricketfanaticsmag.com for all your updates, previews, reviews, features, all sorts of things on this website on a consistent basis. Please go ahead and have a look at that. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. We'll see you guys again tomorrow with another daily show. Enjoy the rest of your week. I hope you have an amazing evening and an amazing week coming forward. See you guys again soon. Peace.